Hello, we are live on on the MMA Freakcast. My name is Matthew Salzer.
I'm Edson Valenzuela.
And today we are going over, it's been a quiet week in terms of the UFC, but we are going over some other things. Namely, well, the first thing we'll be doing...
It is MMA Freak, not
Yes.
UFC Freak, after all.
Yes, it is MMA Freak and not UFC Freak. So,
what are we going over, Matt?
Okay, the first order of business. First of all, for those of you who were paying attention to the last podcast, I did say that it was possible that we may have had people from the Mixed Martial Arts Fighters Association on. That unfortunately didn't happen due to some scheduling conflicts. We will get them on next week. So first of all, my apologies. Second of all, we're just going to go over a few things. Resurrection Fighting Alliance 31 was on last Friday, and it was in the downtown Las Vegas Event Center. So, and it was Gilbert Smith versus Bristol Marunde, and Smith is a former Tough alumni. He was in, I believe, season 17 along with Kelvin Gastelum and Uriah Faber.
Okay.
So, this was for
what weight division is this? I'm sorry.
This was for the middleweight championship.
All right, middleweight championship of Resurrection Fighting Alliance.
Yes, and he won it. So,
did he defend it or won?
I think he won. Let's just take a
closer look.
Yeah, let's just take.
Yeah, slow week. Nothing really new besides, I think, a suspension on the UFC end, and a good opportunity for us to kind of catch up on the larger MMA news world, and talk about other stuff too, right, man?
Yes.
So then, yes, he is the champ, and he retained the welterweight championship.
Oh, yeah, it was the welterweight championship.
Won it last June.
Yes, it was the welterweight championship. He competed on the Ultimate Fighter as a middleweight, but which is not atypical of that show, because you have to make weight multiple times in a matter of weeks. Because I think they only spent a few months there, so you're only there for a matter of weeks. You're gonna make weight multiple times, which is actually why certain people have actually declined to be on the show. One example was Claudia Gadelha when she
had trouble making weight.
Yeah, she declined to be on the show because the reason she mentioned right off the bat was that she just couldn't make weight, because she's a big girl. She's probably more of a natural flyweight.
Yeah.
So going down the straw weight, she needs an actual fight camp, in order to actually cut the weight properly.
We've talked about it before too. Weight cut is it's serious business. People need to be responsible about the weight that they.
Yeah, and she wanted to do it responsibly, and she was straight up, I can't make the weight if we're gonna do that format. So she was one of those three women who either opted or was just automatically given a contract into the UFC.
It's not an easy thing to do, I think, probably, to turn down that amount of notoriety, right? That amount of attention placed in your direction.
Yeah, well, I forget what the other Brazilian gal was, Lima, but she just wasn't put on the show because she just couldn't speak English.
That didn't stop them from casting Nogueira.
Yeah, well, Nogueira could speak English.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, but then with Paige Van Zandt, she was too young because there's alcohol in the house. They can't put a 18 or 19-year-old in a house with alcohol.
So prior to that, they really had never had anybody under 21?
No, that was just the policy. They never had anyone under 21. Not to mention,
I never really gave that thought.
Yeah, not to mention that first season, I think they were kind of all established fighters anyways, season one.
Yes,
so,
we're veering off topic. Get back on RFA.
Okay, yeah, RFA. So, Gilbert Smith defended the title against Bristol Marunde. So, he's not as much of a journeyman as Marunde. We're looking at the records right now. Marunde is 16-10, I think, including that loss, whereas Smith is 12-4.
Yeah. Marunde, this record's not the most impressive. You know?
Smith is kind of I'd say Smith is kind of more of is a little bit more on the
Smith is at 12-4, and you could build on that record.
Yeah,
in mixed martial arts.
Yeah, I have a feeling that he was just one of those guys that UFC just felt that they couldn't, that he either needed to spend more time it being developmental, or they didn't feel that they could really do anything with him. Either that, or he just it was just one of those things where he just didn't make the cut. But ultimately, they decided that they couldn't go with him, so he was picked up by Ed Soros and RFA. So,
and he's won, let's say, 4 of the last 5 matches that he's been in, stretching back to last August. He's been able to put together.
Oh, that was the problem. He lost in the Ultimate Fighter finale. Okay,
and since then he's not been with the company, but he has a winning record since he's left the UFC.
He had a winning record before, and then he's still got a winning record after.
But he hasn't been able to put together more than 3 wins in a row without losing. So maybe you might want to wait for him to get on a 4-fight win streak before you think about re-signing him over to the UFC.
Yeah, another thing with the UFC, that was at the Ultimate Fighter finale. For some of these fighters, that's basically your tryout. You either win that fight or you're not getting into the UFC. That's unfortunately just how it goes at times. So I have a feeling that's just how it went with. Though I don't recall how well Bubba McDaniel did afterwards either. So,
what are some other fights that occurred at that on that RFA card?
Okay,
maybe a couple of the
only other major fight that happened, because RFA being what it is, these are all kind of up and comers. The only other notable one was the co-main event, which was a women's fight. Jocelyn Jones Liebarger versus Zola Frosto, and the Zola Frosto's she's significant because she was the only Bellator strawweight champion.
Okay.
She went through that tournament. She upset Megumi Fuji. She upset Jessica Aguilar. She upset a lot of women, and it was kind of similar to And
you don't want to upset women. Go on.
So to speak.
Zola Frosto.
Yeah. So, which that's actually significant because it was kind of similar to how Joanna Jędrzejczyk and Claudia Gadelha went in and beat Carla Esparza and Jessica Aguilar respectively, and they were what's it called? They're they're stand-up strikers.
Yeah.
But it versus kind of smaller grapplers. But I'm wondering if this, because this has kind of been a little bit of a trend. I'm wondering if this is just reflective on MMA in general, or if this is more reflective of women's MMA specifically, where you have these big, huge, and this is happening at strawweight specifically. You have these big, huge strikers who develop a very, very basic takedown defense, and they're going in there and they're defeating these kind of smaller grapplers. Because, like I said, this is the second time this happened to Aguilar. She lost that was the second time that happened to Aguilar, or where she lost to Fausto, and then she lost to Gadelha, and then it's like, well, where do they go? But
so on this fight, Frosta was not able to pull out the win.
No, she was not. She lost. And that was actually for the women's strawweight championship.
Okay. So that means Jocelyn Jones Liebarger
is now
retains the championship.
Yes, she is now
the champ. The women's strawweight championship of Resurrection Fighting Alliance.
Yeah, and if I recall, this was the inaugural championship. So,
all right, that went 5 rounds. That's kind of a long fight for,
a women's fight.
Yeah, sure. And I mean, the rest of the card was comprised of.
It was comprised of up and comers mainly, and this was on what's it called? It was on.
And just from the looks of this,
it was on Access TV.
From the looks of this, it looks like RFA's got a lot of sort of lightweight to middleweight fighters. What would you?
That seems to be what they've concentrated on in the past. Yeah, they only recently they only recently started going for kind of heavyweight fighters. They're looking to get a light heavyweight champion sometime soon, but yeah, they've concentrated mainly on the lighter weights. So.
Resurrection Fighting Alliance has been around for how long now?
It's been around, let's see, for about, been around since 2011.
It's been, almost half a decade now. Ed Soares has been running it.
Yeah.
Ed Soares perhaps has had some diminishing influence within the UFC in the recent years with
because the Black House guys kind of are. I hate to say this, but it seems like they're kind of flowing into irrelevance, if we're going to say that.
And the reason and this is true, the reason I mention Ed Soares' working relationship with the UFC, though, is because that is what allowed, I think you've mentioned this to me, that is what has allowed the Resurrection Fighting Alliance to sort of be able to work openly with Zuffa.
Yeah, in some ways, yeah.
And so, in ways that
they're almost,
Dana White has not allowed other brands to receive that amount of recognition, right?
Yeah, they're almost in a way an unofficial
farm system.
Yeah, they're in a way an unofficial developmental league, and them, and then you got promotions like the promotions on UFC Fight Pass like Titan FC, and other promotions like what was it? Well, just overall, like Shuto Brazil. Now Pancrase is on there as well, and then he also got Invicta. So a lot of those promotions, yeah, they're kind of the ones on UFC Fight Pass can definitely be considered developmental. UFC developmental promotions. The one, RFA can be considered an unofficial one, but yeah, they definitely have close working ties.
So it being a smaller mixed martial arts promotion, it's not inconceivable that it could eventually fail or just go defunct at some point, right? The reason I specifically bring it up would be just because if there is a sort of increasing crowd of organizations that are sort of conceding, like, we're no longer going to try to be the premier MMA, organization, but we will try to cultivate talent and provide it for the premier MMA organization. Is this sort of the model that we've all that the industry of MMA has sort of agreed to sort of adhere by? Let's say, that is to say, we're not even going to try, except for Bellator, we're not even going to try to compete with the UFC, let's say, and we're going to just do our best to make okay fighters and then try and have a working relationship with the UFC.
I think with a lot of promotions, yeah, that's how it is. King of the Cage, definitely, that's kind of the stance that they've kind of taken. Titan FC, clearly. Legacy FC is definitely taken that as well. There's just most of the promotions out there, they've just kind of taken to that stance. I'd say the exception, though, would be World Series of Fighting, because they've clearly said that they now want to go against the UFC, which I think is kind of
unrealistic.
I think that's unrealistic. I don't think they have the resources. They have intermittent fight cards. They don't have anywhere near the talent to them or even Bellator. I just don't think it's realistic. I think they're basically signing their own death warrants, to be specific. If they really want to go head to head with the UFC, they're signing their death warrants, because they're not going to last. There's been various rumors in and out that that promotion's been having issues to begin with. Fighters aren't happy with the fact that they aren't getting a good number of fights like their contracts say they are, and it's just I really don't think they're gonna.
So we've had a chance to touch on Resurrection Fighting Alliance. We had a chance to touch on the card that already happened.
Yes.
I did want to bring up two things, though. And I'm sorry to cut you off.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to bring up...
Well, I have a tendency to ramble.
Yeah, you might. I wanted to bring up two things regarding the UFC.
Okay.
One of them,
we're done with the RFA anyway, so...
And, I mean, it was a card that happened over the weekend, so, of course, we want to talk about it right away, right?
Yes.
There was a champion crown, Gilbert Smith. Congratulations.
Yes.
I wanted to bring up...
And Jocelyn Jones-Bart.
And absolutely. I wanted to bring up the UFC having to cancel sort of a fight that has a marquee fighter in it, across the Atlantic, set for Dublin, Fight Night Dublin. It was supposed to be a co-main event, and they were unable to find a suitable replacement, the UFC was, for Ben Rothwell, heavyweight with the UFC.
When Miocic was...
He had a fight with Stipe Miocic. He was forced to withdraw due to an injury. Did they ever specify what injury that might have been?
I'm not sure, but injuries happen, so I'm sure that it'll come to light relatively at some point on exactly what happened there. But
that would have been an okay fight. Stipe Miocic obviously on the rise. Miocic, who knows? Miocic.
Yeah, I'd argue that at one point he was within 1 or 2 wins of a title shot on multiple occasions.
Did he hit a roadblock?
The most recent. Yeah, he lost to Dos Santos.
I think I might have seen that one. They sort of pummeled on each other. Yes.
Yeah, it was a 5-9. It was late last year, 5-9. They definitely went at it.
So that would have been a cool fight to watch. Ben Rothwell, I think, also sort of on a recent upswing, though he has had he's a veteran of the game at this point.
Yeah, he's a veteran. Something that I've noticed is that a lot of veterans have recently been reviving their
Frank Mir.
Yeah, Frank Mir, Fabricio Werdum, Mark Hunt, Andrei Arlovsky, fighters, and another thing is that they're also mainly heavyweights.
Yeah.
So
I mean, there is a longevity in boxing, or rather in MMA, in a way that you won't find in a sport, say like boxing. A fighter, Randy Couture sort of laid out the template back in the day of, hey, if you keep yourself healthy, you get in a fight smart, you're going to be able to compete in this sport for a very long time.
Yeah, and another thing is that even though there were multiple times where Couture would lose via knockout, he never took a huge amount of punishment. I don't think.
Exactly.
That's unlike fighters like Chuck Liddell, where once he lost, he just kept going downhill because his chin,
I'm no neurologist.
His iron chin was gone.
Yeah, I'm no neurologist.
Essentially,
but I think it's evident, especially to those of us who have watched MMA, that once you've had a concussion, let's say that's you getting knocked out, right? You're concussed. You seem to be then prone to concussions with much more ease or frequency after that.
Well, that's I think that's
Mazel, Vanderlei Silva, Crow Cop. I think more recently, to a certain degree, Nogueira. You'll even see it. Nogueira would be an example of seeing it in a fighter that you never saw it in before.
Yeah.
And then you sort of start to see it back to back, and you go, "This is making me uncomfortable."
Yeah.
It's
let's also bring up guys who end up having careers outside the UFC, like Gary Goodrich.
You mean kickboxing, or
Gary Goodrich had a MMA career outside of the UFC.
Oh, sorry. That you mean a mixed martial arts career outside of the UFC?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Like him, Jens Pulver, Ken Shamrock, guys like that. And another problem with some of those guys, they kept going because they really couldn't afford to retire.
This is true.
Because guys like Jens Pulver, where I really feel sorry for Jens Pulver, because there was supposedly a time when, back when WEC was in there, he fought a few fights. Supposedly they were saying, oh, he's going to retire and he's becoming an announcer because he hadn't announced them before.
Mm-hmm. No dice.
It's almost as if the UFC purposely screwed
No,
him
well,
over.
that's
and I hate Zuffa specifically, and I hate to say it like that, but it's kind of like, he was a veteran of the sport. He was the first lightweight championship, and it was sad to see, that steady spiral out of control. Now, for other guys, probably more like Ken Shamrock, I don't think that was necessarily the case. I think he just wanted to keep fighting.
Yeah. Frank Shamrock, I think Frank Shamrock also found a way to make a lot of money off of his own, how to market himself when he was at Strikeforce. Or at least to make a living, not really being a.
Are we talking about the same Shamrock? I'm talking about Ken Shamrock.
Yeah, I mentioned.
Frank Shamrock.
You had said Frank, I think a couple.
Yeah, Frank Shamrock was set in other ways. Ken Shamrock, I think his issue is that he just didn't want to stop competing.
So
and then you have another category of like Dan Severn, who just kept fighting for the sake of fighting, and where he was established in pro wrestling, and he didn't. I think he was just a competitor, and he said.
Let me finish this. So, Stipe and Brand out of the fight. Now that will be replaced by a lightweight fight between Norman Park and Reza Madadi. Two fighters I have never heard of before.
I'd like to say Park, maybe one of the local Irish, so maybe that would just be better for the fight. Or Northern Ireland.
Stormin' Norman Park, 20-4. It's an impressive record. It's an impressive tattoo. But he has lost his last two fights. Hasn't won since July 2014. Looking to bounce back against Reza Mad Dog Madidi. And this will be a co-main event fight.
From Iran.
He's from Iran. And he is 13-3 in 15 fights.
Just coming off a win against Michael Johnson.
Coming off a win.
Oh, but that was a while back.
2 years ago. So this will be his first fight in over 2 years.
He must have had injuries and whatnot.
There must have been something going on there, but he does have 3 fights with the UFC. People might have a hard time remembering him because he hasn't had a fight since 2013.
This is true.
So that's cool. That I'll say this: looking at these two gentlemen who I just admitted I'd never heard of before, looking at their records and at their fights, that looks like an okay replacement fight for a heavyweight fight, which is a tough fight.
Yeah, well, if you're talking about look for maybe the local crowd, then yeah, that's probably something.
And also, I mean, given their records, given their records, that is to say, the combined sort of win ratio and the experience, it's going to be a fight between two solid MMA fighters.
Yeah,
with respectable records. So there is something at stake, and there is this sense of. Hey, this is helping round out whatever weight division they're going to be in, which I think was the light heavyweight. Is that what I said? I think
that's lightweight.
Lightweight. I apologize. So there you go. It's kind of the opposite side of the spectrum.
Yeah, I kind of already heard of Norman Park before, but it's just So. And
the second thing I wanted to mention regarding the UFC, it's the last thing we'll talk about, I think, with about the UFC, unless you have something to bring up afterwards, and that is Mexican-born fighter Francisco Trevino tested positive for marijuana following his UFC loss to
Sage Northcutt.
Sage Northcutt,
who actually has been subject to a little bit of controversy as well.
Himself?
Not him. I can't remember which fighter exactly it was.
Catch me up on this controversy.
Okay, so I forget which fighter it was.
Sage Northcutt. We're talking about.
Yeah, I forget which fighter it was, but someone basically called him a privileged white boy.
Whoa, that's not cool.
And the fighter in question was black.
Well, that's unfortunate.
So,
it would have been cool if he was purple. It wouldn't have been cool if he was pink.
Yeah, someone's pulling the race card here.
Someone.
Yeah, the fighter who said that, I'd say he's pulling the race card a little bit. And it's not necessary because but.
This isn't a podcast about geopolitics.
Yeah.
Stay on topic.
Okay, yeah, stay on topic. So,
go on.
Okay, but...
but the point is that was the controversy. So he was on the end, he was sort of on the other end of the controversy. He didn't cause the controversy.
Yeah, he didn't cause the controversy. He was on the other end of the controversy.
But both fighters sort of a little bit going on. That is to say, though, Francisco Trevino...
Yes, Trevino.
He did lose his fight.
And then he tested positive for weed.
He did test positive for weed. Well, you know,
which I'm still going to maintain. I do believe that needs to remain on the banned substance list. Whatever anyone else says, it needs to remain on the banned substance list, and I think it should be banned for in competition tests, regardless of how long it stays in your system. You should not be doing weed leading up to a fight. You just shouldn't.
Well,
but anyways,
words
yeah.
Simply put.
Yeah. So.
Well, you know, so I don't know if it results in a MMA Fighting reported this, and if it results in a suspension. Yeah, he was suspended by the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation for 90 days. I would say, and he was fined for or it's also possible that he might be, fined for $5,000. He lost the fight, so at the very least he didn't win and then get into trouble.
Yeah.
So I guess it's kind of, that would have been maybe a little worse, maybe a little better. And it's a non-story, I think. I understand your opinion, but really, I mean, I'm on sort of the opposite side as far as your opinion is concerned, which is, yes, it's a banned substance. Completely understood. The fighters should follow rules. That's what they should do more than anything, right? If there are rules that need to be followed, the fighters need to make sure to do that because they're trying to earn a living, and they can't expect to be able to make a living if they're not able to follow rules from their employers.
Yeah.
But beyond that, all the moralizing that comes with that sort of, with, let's say, habitual drug use, you know, is based on an individual sort of experience. And I say, from my perspective, as a young Mexican in this country, that it's sort of a bummer that the two highest publicized events that are of this nature this year are Diaz and Trevino. Though I don't. The humor of it's not lost on me.
Yeah. Okay. So.
I mean, again, suspension for 90 days. Texas kind of did it. That's kind of tame, right?
Yeah, I'd say so.
You know, coming off of the 5-year suspension, which this is where we're going to start to see maybe this is. I would say this. Well, this is an important. This is going to be, I think, an important sort of an important talking point when now referring to the previous Diaz case, which is, hey, everybody, take a look over in this direction. Francisco Trevino just got 90 days for essentially the same, even though it wasn't a repeat offense, completely understood, but for essentially what was the exact same offense, you know? Two different states. Again, there's a lot going on.
Well, yeah. Another thing to remember is that state athletic commissions are gonna do their thing, right? They're gonna operate. They're gonna operate a little bit separately on how they do things. Obviously, Nevada, they recently revised their policies on how they're gonna do things. But even though Nevada could, because it's the fight capital of the world, could be considered the role model for everyone. All other athletic commissions, not all athletic commissions are going to follow that, because then, there was a while where the New York State Athletic Commission was seen as a role model. But of course, in MMA, there's no such thing as New York being a role model because there's no MMA in New York. So, but anyways, and my understanding also is that Texas seems to be doing things a little bit differently. I think there was this one time, I can't remember which woman fighter, it was either I'd like to say it was but one of the fighters tested positive and got fined, but didn't get suspended. The fighter in question, I'd like to say it was but I can't remember off the bat. But it happened in Texas. Texas fined them and then put him on probation, but didn't suspend him. Okay. So the fight was in another state. The fighter in question got to fight on the fight card and things were saved. But it's kind of one of those questions where it's like, well,
yeah.
It's just athletic commissions are just the individual athletic commissions are just going to do things differently. California operates separate from Las Vegas, even though they're right next door to each other. Texas is going to do things differently,
and it's because of the ultra consolidated sort of business model that the UFC has, or brand recognition that the UFC has, that it makes it sort of that I think it would make it confusing for some fans to sort of follow, hey, this, like you're mentioning, every state's athletic commission is going to respond and treat these fighters who are under contract with the UFC, with its brand recognition. They're going to treat them differently. So the point I'm trying to make, I guess, is if there are sort of these inconsistencies with how they dole out, how they reprimand people, how they give these sort of suspensions, it has nothing. As the UFC has zero control over it a lot of the time. I don't think a lot of people separate that in their minds. Sometimes they think that the UFC is specifically who they need a petition for these sorts of things. It's much more complicated than that. It would be your state's athletic commission. Texas
or in places like Brazil, it'd be like the national
whatever,
the national athletic or the national MMA commission or the Swedish MMA. I think they're called federations.
And this is not and these are not standard, especially in MMA. I'd say more in MMA, more than you would expect in boxing. They do not have these standardized sort of universal understandings of rules, of banned substances, of any number of things.
Yeah, there was actually an Access special. I can't remember if it was earlier this year, maybe even late last year, but there was actually this Access TV special, or not special, but Inside MMA, where they did this segment on apparently how they scored the judging is done. Apparently, certain athletic commissions don't score an MMA fight based off of grappling at all, and I was kind of like, that's an essential part of the sport.
A discussion about knowledgeability.
And these are like some of the smaller Midwestern states, actually. So where fights don't normally take place anyways, but it's still one of those things where it's like.
This is a discussion about knowledgeability within the persons who are in charge of judging and the persons who are in charge of running these sporting commissions.
Yeah.
So, like you're mentioning, in the Midwest, they're not really the people who run the sporting commissions over there. It's a sport commission. That is to say, I do believe it sort of oversees all sports. Yes.
Combat sports.
Okay. All combat sports. Yes.
Yeah. So some of I think kickboxing varies based on the commission, but yeah.
Until
MMA, boxing,
until the early 2000s,
some even still oversee pro wrestling, even though it's more entertainment than anything else. It's still a high combat velocity type thing. So some of them do oversee pro wrestling.
And until the early to mid 2000s, I mean, most of the people that were working there were probably more familiar with boxing.
Yeah.
And so that's still an issue that we're having now, and this is a discussion that we've been having for decades in the MMA community, which is we need to make sure that the people that are working.
Which there's only been maybe 2 decades in the MMA community.
Yeah, 2.5. Which is we need to hope that
two, because 05 and then 1995.
We're in 15, but I mean, mixed martial arts.
Yeah,
we're talking. Yeah, so.
Yeah, 2 decades. But yeah, anyways, what was your point?
We need to make sure that the people that are going to be in charge of overseeing these sorts of things occurring in mixed martial arts as a sport are knowledgeable with what it is that mixed martial arts is, right?
Yes.
If you don't know what you're looking at, mixed martial arts can be a very confusing sport. And, I can see how, and this is a discussion, this is a talking point that's been sort of beaten to death. But, it's still very important, as you can see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and another thing to remember is that the not just the judging, but also the reffing needs to.
Yep.
It's because the last UFC, which was in Houston, I was seeing all these refs who I don't even recognize, except maybe Herb Dean, but all these refs were out there, and I'm thinking, who are these guys? I know none of these guys. Where it's and we've seen good refs, and then we've seen bad refs where points will be deducted like without any warning when they really should be given a warning. Yeah. We'll also see bad judging where something will be a fight goes to another, the win goes to the other fighter. We'll see early stoppages, we'll see late stoppages. There's just this whole
And it's a lack of continuity and a lack of standardization among the people who are the professionals in these sort of in this industry.
Well, and it's and another thing, there's veteran refs who are very, very good refs, and we've seen them. Like I said, Big John McCarthy, Herb Dean. Those guys are the standard of refs because they've been doing it for a very long time. Herb Dean has fought in MMA matches.
Yamazaki, I think Mario Yamazaki's alright.
Yeah, Mario Yamazaki's are also up there as well. He's he was a Brazilian guy. But then you have guys who should know better, like Steve Zagatti and Yves Levine, who just go out there and they botch matches horribly.
They have,
and it's just like, what's wrong with you guys? You guys have been doing this for a long time. How do you not know this?
It's not easy, and somebody's got somewhere out there is the world's crappiest doctor. Yeah. And so somebody's got to be the worst one. Yves Levine, I think, has maybe a little bit of a stigma attached to him for the one time he did that backward somersault. What fight was that?
I'm trying to remember, yeah.
Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I remember.
He tripped on himself, fell on his button, and sort of just kept it rolling and rolled back onto, I think he just rolled back and got back up and kept it. I'm still ref.
That got
a million GIFs all over the internet.
Not only that, but it got attention from the crowd.
Yes. Oh, yes, definitely. So not an easy job to do, and it's an interesting thing that all these years later, we're still talking about, let's get the officiating right, let's get the reffing right, let's get the commissions to understand the sport, understand what combat sports are, so that they're able to sort of officiate
in a better
in a pragmatic and fair way.
Yes.
So, Ronda's mom.
Yes,
Ronda Rousey.
Yes, Ronda Rousey's mother, and this just goes to show where Ronda Rousey got her personality from, because she's got a very outspoken mother. So, Ronda's mother recently actually was trash talking her coach.
Okay.
Edmund Tekterov, I think is.
Okay.
I think that's how you pronounce the Armenian, but okay. She was criticizing.
She was criticizing him.
Yeah, she was criticizing him, and
what'd she have to say about him?
She was basically saying he was a bad coach. He got the lottery with Ronda, and she was just smack talking him and just saying that he just isn't the best of coaches out there. If it weren't for the fact that I've seen some success with fighters other than Ronda, I might agree with her, but I have seen success with fighters other than Ronda to a degree.
Well, I mean, it's a combination. It's going to end up being somewhere in the middle.
Even though
combination of the both.
Even though he was involved in coaching on season 18 of The Ultimate Fighter, even though the two winners ultimately end up being Team Tate fighters. That's just one of those entertaining things. Ronda was constantly smack talking that whole season, and then the winners ultimately end up being two Team Tate people. Speaking of which, Pena's making Julia Pena the women's winner. I'm glad to see her winning, but I can't remember what happened to the male winner. Just a sec. Let me look that up, it's good to see Pena, being able to make it back, or being able to make it, considering that just horrible injury she had with her leg. So I'm glad to see. Yeah, Chris Holdsworth. Let's see what is up with Mr. Holdsworth. Let's see. He has a winning record. He fought at UFC.
He's been out of it for a year, more than a year.
He's out with a concussion. So he's been out. He's been out with a concussion.
Suffered in training, according to Wikipedia.
Yeah. So that's another. Something else that I noticed. TJ Grant was supposed to get a lightweight title shot way back, like 2 years ago.
What happened there?
He got concussion and hasn't come back since then. Yeah, so that's another one of those things where it's like, what happened to these people?
It's not easy. MMA is not an easy sport to be a part of, People get hurt, people get injured. And even in training, there is hazards to be sort of wary of.
Yeah, that's Ronda's mother is kind of smack talk.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, that's if Ronda Rousey's personality is indicative of anything, and that's that they're ready to sort of pop off at the mouth whenever they feel like it. And frankly, I think the MMA fans are they're digging it.
Mm-hmm.
We're kind of running out of stuff to talk about. You wanted to talk about World Series of Fighting 24.
Yeah, I'm gonna hold off on that for a little bit. But the other thing I really want to talk about is the whole Fedor situation. Now, the name of the promotion in Japan is finally come to light. It's going to be called Rizin Fighting Federation, and of course Sakaki Bada is in charge of it.
Okay.
Now, Fedor's apparently former manager Vladim Finkelstein has come forth actually saying that he is not Fedor's manager this time around, and that this whole enterprise is kind of sketchy because it's heavily depending on other on the talent from other promotions. They've partnered with Bellator, not just Bellator, but KSW, which is the Poland promotion, and also Jungle Fights, which is based in
Finkelstein,
which is based in Brazil. And I'd imagine maybe they might be able to see if they can't get ONE FC on board with that one, because ONE FC's been open to co-promotions before.
Finkelstein mentioning that something might be shady is sort of the kettle calling the pot black. Though,
yeah,
right?
because with the whole M1
him
Global,
being shady.
Yeah, with the whole M1 Global and stuff like that. But yeah, that's
what a
clown. So apparently, in regards to Rizin Fighting Federation, there's the New Year's event. It's apparently going to be 3 days long. So on Spike, so it's like, wow, is this really going to happen?
Are they just going to do a constant feed without commercials? They'll just do the arena at 2 a.m. Check out that guy over there sweeping. The one guy who sweeps the arena overnight.
I doubt it, but it's just one of those things where it's like, wow, is this really going to happen?
Well,
and I'm still wondering if
probably not.
And I'm still wondering if Antonio Inoki's still going to try doing the Inoki Bombaye, or maybe if he's even going to be a part of this, because towards the end of the Dynamite shows, Inoki's Genome Federation was involved in some of those shows. So it's kind of a question of, is this really going to happen? Are we going to see this? Are we going to see a big diverse pro wrestling kickboxing show again? Or what's going to happen here?
So are you legitimately concerned as to whether or not it's going to occur? Because
obviously this New Year's event is going to happen. The question is whether is how
much of a joke it's going to be, if it's going to be that K1 that they held at the Rose Bowl, at the
Coliseum.
The Coliseum. I think it was a joke. You don't remember the DJ being like, "Boo"?
I don't understand why they even had
okay,
that guy.
so at the Coliseum there was a DJ. They had a DJ.
I forgot. Was the Coliseum show the one
that was the first MMA fight that Brock Lesnar was in?
Yeah, that first where he was he was supposed to go against the Korean giant. The guy that Fedor fought. Yeah, he was supposed to go against Chongman Hoi. Hoi got injured, and he got fed the guy that he was given.
Who was it again?
It's some lower level Korean guy who, as we know, it was
a joke.
It was a massacre.
They
fed him to Brock. They fed him like they fed the Undertaker undefeated streak to Brock.
There was some. That's funny. There was some sort
they eat a lot of stuff to Brock.
Yeah, they do.
That's why he's such a. That's why he's such a massive.
That's why he bulks.
Yeah. Did I mention that in his NCAA championship, he wasn't defined. He was big. The muscle on him was not defined. He looked like a giant ox wrestling. No. not fluffy.
A beast.
He looked like a big giant ox. He looked like one of those mountain blue bovines. You know, the ones that are bred to be, you know, big and hulking and all meat. Like the good meat.
Yes, I've seen those. They're scary and gross.
Yes.
Yes.
That's what Brock reminded me of when I saw him in this picture. I'm like,
Sure.
oh my gosh, that's the guy who's more cut and defined now.
Yeah, that's an absurdity.
It was just like, oh my gosh.
So,
it was just.
we got the Fedor stuff going. We're gonna see how that goes. Spike TV, you said?
Yeah, Spike. That's why he will eventually appear in Bellator, because they signed this partnership.
Understood.
Yeah. So, okay, now to close out the show, we are going to do World Series of Fighting.
What do you think?
Okay. Well, the
World Series of Fighting.
yes, World Series
24.
Yes, World Series of Fighting 24, Fitch versus Okami. This is Yoshino Okami's this is Yoshino Okami's welterweight debut. He was actually, for a Japanese person, he was actually huge as a middleweight. Because remember, Japanese don't before, you know, the UFC, Japanese fighters didn't typically cut. Or before this modern era, they didn't typically cut. So, but now they've kind of come to the realization, you know, I'm going to go against these bigger guys if I want to be in the weight class I'm in. If I want to be successful, I need to start dropping down. So Okami is obviously feeling this way as well, because he fought in a few matches in
The UFC.
Well, World Series of Fighting after he got cut from the UFC at middleweight, and he started losing a few. So I think he realized, if I want to be competitive, relevant, I need to drop down. So he's dropping down and he's facing John Fitch.
Okay.
Fitch, who might be one of the guys talking next week with the MMA FA, because he's actually, my understanding is he's actually involved in the leadership, but
He might be.
yeah,
Allegedly.
So this fight, I don't know if it has title implications. It may or may not. One also has to
the John Fitch Okami fight.
Yeah, and one also has to remember that, you know, with Rusama or Paul Harris being stripped of the title and suspended, that title's pretty much open. Okay. So this could be an eliminator fight. Okay. Maybe if Shields were to get a rebound fight, maybe that would be an eliminator fight, and then we'd see.
So we have some interesting fights in that division in the World Series of Fighting. I mean, some ex-UFC marquee fighters.
Then in the co-main event, Blagoy Ivanov, who made his name more from fighting in Bellator.
These are heavyweights.
Will be defending.
And he's a champion.
Yes, will be defending his title against Derek Mint. Is that Mint? Memon.
Yeah.
And another note, Blagoy Ivanov originally made a name for himself by beating Fedor in a Sambo tournament.
Oh, I think I've seen that one.
Yes, that's
he celebrates. He celebrates.
Yeah. So
he's quite happy about having just beat Fedor in a Sambo fight.
And then another fight there as well. Yeah, light heavyweight Vinny Magales.
I have no clue.
Magales versus Matt Hamill.
That's the Hammer?
Yeah. The Hammer. So I actually watched that that movie about him called The Hammer.
That's like a dramatized movie about his life?
Yeah.
So he plays himself, kind of?
No, it was they got another deaf
to play him?
Yes, they got another deaf athlete to play him.
Oh, but I didn't know that. Go on.
But they it was basically about his life leading up to
MMA, the UFC.
Yeah, something like that.
Was he in the UFC? He was in the UFC, right? In the Ultimate Fighter, or no?
Yeah, the Ultimate Fighter season 3.
Okay.
And
he was cool.
Yeah, he was. Nice guy. He was supposed to. He actually had to withdraw with that competition because of I believe it was a shoulder injury.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
And then, he was on Team Ortiz, and then ironically enough, he would beat Tito years later.
Yes,
And it was
he did.
that was one of those times where it was funny because Tito was smack talking the way he does, and then he gets beat.
Yeah, well, Tito knows how to make a fight
Yeah.
interesting, you know, even if it's not that interesting.
Yeah. So then
Two other fights on the main fight card.
Yeah, Nick Newell, who's the guy who's known for having half of an arm, basically.
Okay.
He'll be fighting Tom Marcelino. Newell, he lost his the title fight to Justin Gaeth, who's I think it's Gaethje, who's the current World Series of Fighting champion.
Okay.
And so yeah, and then he recently got his rebound fight earlier this year. So I'm guessing my guess is he still wants a run at that title. And
so to be clear, earlier what you said regarding Newell, you meant he had a congenital amputation of his left arm.
Yes.
So you know he's got his left arm up until about here.
Yeah.
Which is
but
interesting.
that actually makes a good hook when it comes to certain submissions. He's actually been able to. He's good at the rear naked choke because there's usually when you're doing a rear naked choke.
I see what you mean.
Obviously, there's limbs that you
so
there's limbs that you
can leverage
grab.
let's say you could leverage the longer part of the arm, right?
Yeah, but there's
good luck
there's
catching
limbs.
on to that small
you
bit.
You can't get that because it's a hook.
That's
so it's
fascinating.
like you can't get it.
That's fascinating.
So that's how, and he's also been able to pull heel hooks with that arm as well because you can't grab anything. You literally cannot grab anything.
So there have been fighters like Nick Newell before. That is to say, there have been fighters with physical disabilities before who have attempted to have an MMA career, an amateur MMA career.
If we want to talk about Hamill, he's deaf.
I mean, yeah, he was. Aside from the clear example that we just stated, wasn't there a young man I think who only had an upper torso or something along the lines of that? Maybe it was missing. Maybe had two amputated legs.
There was a guy who was. The only other example,
missing a leg, maybe.
The only other example is the guy who literally had nubs. He just had he had arms to here and he had nubs.
Okay,
that's the guy.
Well, that is to say,
that's the guy.
He was completely amputated.
Yeah,
but he had all four limbs amputated.
Yes, congenital amputee, and that fight was not a good fight to watch because
it seems like it would be a tough one to maybe watch. I think I missed that one as well. All the luck to Nick Newell in his fight against Tom Marcelino. All the luck to Tom Marcelino as well.
And then
the last fight,
which is an example of how promotions like World Series of Fighting prioritize title fights or certain title fights. Their inaugural flyweight championship is between Magomed is that Bibulatov against Donovan Frello.
Frelo?
I've heard of neither of these guys.
So inaugural flyweight championship fight for World Series of Championship 24. Don't miss it.
Okay.
I got nothing else. I don't have anything written up for the site.
That's
You did something yesterday.
Yes,
I think.
I updated the light heavyweight rankings, and surprisingly,
the website we're talking about is MMA-Freak.com.
Yeah.
That's where Matt and I and some others occasionally contribute.
Yeah. I'm actually kind of surprised because someone,
others being Tom Heffernan.
Yeah.
And others.
With the rankings, the rankings have been modeled after other sites, and some sites have most sites that I've seen actually have a inactive rule for basically 12 months, saying that if you're not active in the last 12 months, then you're basically ineligible for rankings.
Yes,
Rashad was in this situation for the longest time. Right. Now that he's in there, the rankings that were tallied actually put him rather low. And I remember when I posted it to the MMA forum that I usually post to, to get views and stuff like that, someone actually said, I don't think Rashad should even be on there because of how inactive he was. And I was like, I don't.
That's a legitimate argument to make.
Because he,
it's tough when
he went in there,
they haven't been active.
Yeah, he went in there, lost to Ryan Bader, and this time around for this month, he's ranked at number 9.
You have him at number 9.
Yes. Well, that's the group.
The website's 9. Yeah.
Yes, the group consensus was that he is a number 9 right now.
Yeah.
So
sounds about right.
And then and then due to that suspension, John Jones is.
You got him out of there, and you got Cormier planted firmly at number 1 for right now.
Cormier's number 1. Johnson's listed number 2. Gustafson's number 3. Teixeira's number 4. Bader's number 5 because of that head-to-head. Phil Davis 6 again because of the head-to-head and not having anything to do with the Teixeira fight. Vincent Cruz is again lower because he lost to Teixeira and he just hasn't. He's had some good fights, but he just hasn't fought anybody else. Then McGarry basically hasn't fought anybody. Rashad's where he is, and then Jimmy Manua recently got his rear end handed to him by Anthony Johnson, and really hasn't fought anybody else.
Okay. So I mean,
well, he got his rear. He also got his rear end handed to him by Gustafsson a while back.
We were talking about how competitive the light heavyweight division is yesterday. It's still competitive. It's still one of the most interesting divisions in the UFC, probably, at least as far as I'm concerned, probably the most interesting one. A lot of cool fights to be made, even among the fighters that you just mentioned, and sort of counted off. Let's see. We're going to try to get a couple more interviews. We're still in contact with a couple more people. But we have nothing. I don't think we have anything new or upcoming right now. We'll try and get this cast going next week. What do you think?
So we'll definitely do the podcast next week and try to actually get the MMA on this time around because they want to do a podcast. We would like to have them on. So we're all definitely gonna work together and try to get this thing done. So
so what do you think? We're all good?
Yeah, I'd say we're all good. So
give me your Twitter tag.
Okay, so again, my Twitter tag is at Matthew Salzer.
Mine is at Edson_V.
And the Twitter tag for the website is at MMA Freakout. And thank you very much. Have a good day, and we'll see you next week.
Happy October.